That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a few quick reminders before we get started. Our Hawaii conference is right around the corner, and there are still tickets available if you would like to join us April 20th through the 24th on the Big Island. All of that information can be found at journeytotruth.online. That link is below. By the way, Aaron, did you notice that our links are working again on YouTube? They gave us
Oh, are they? No, I
yeah,
didn't even.
they just gave us a feature back. I just noticed the other day.
Wow, how about that?
So for a minute there, for those who don't know, I guess YouTube took away some of our advanced features, and we couldn't put links under our videos, but that option has been given back to us, so that's great. So now you can click the links that we talk about, actually.
Now you don't have to copy and paste the links. You can
Right.
click. All right.
So yeah, and we can't wait, guys. There are a very limited amount of tickets left for Hawaii, like 20, 25 tickets, and maybe even less. But if you want to join us, I would start planning your trip now. It's going to be a blast. We've been looking forward to this for a long time, and it's going to be here before you know it. So April 20th, start planning your trip now, grab a ticket, and we can't wait to see you there. I did also just create a Telegram link for that conference. So anybody who has purchased a ticket, email me and I will send you guys the Telegram link if you want to join the chat to try and coordinate with people and plan your trip and all that stuff. So I will also put that link on the website here. I just need to remind myself to do it. Anyway, that being said, today we are joined by Alandra Markman, somebody we've been meaning to have on the show for quite some time, and we're excited to be here with him. We ran into him in Mount Shasta a couple years ago, and it took us this long to finally get together. And, he's been doing career teaching with in co-creative meditation and helping other SRA and SSP survivors to heal. So we're going to be talking about some of that, but he has his own secret space program story, a satanic ritual abuse story. He's a survivor, but he also likes to help people and integrate the soul fragments and all that stuff. So we're going to get into plenty of fun stuff today, but welcome to the show, Alandra.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I understand I probably didn't do the greatest job introducing you. So if you would like to let our audience know a little bit more about who you are and like how you found your way into doing what you're doing today, and then
Yeah.
we can go from there.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Alandra. I'm a meditation teacher and I do coaching work with people for spiritual development. And I also help survivors of trauma-based mind control to heal. That's my preferred term. It's a big category. Includes satanic ritual abuse, secret space program stuff, targeted individual stuff. I went through all of those categories growing up, and I found my path to freedom. So that now that's part of my continuing learning is to teach others. So that's where I'm at.
Right. So, and we don't have to get into the dark stuff, obviously, but so your story begins at what age? What did you realize, or looking back on it now, when did you realize this was all starting for you?
There are two main timelines that I'm on. The initial person, his name is Max, was born in 1970. And then the person whose body this is, who we're calling Alandra, I was born as Ellen, was born in 1986. So I'm working with those two main reference points for timing.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you really quick because I find that aspect very interesting, and I think there's something similar going on with myself. So explain to me, like I'm a 5-year-old, what you mean by that. How can you be born two different places, 2 different years?
Sure.
And I understand that it's real, but I'm also still trying to understand it. So I would appreciate this explanation.
Yes. Well, the simple way to say it is I'm two people in one body. So some people would consider that 1970 birth a past life. For me, that's not what it is. Past lives are normal. Everybody reincarnates. So this I just consider normal. Nothing really outstanding about that in and of itself. I mean, I do remember the past lives, so I guess that part is special. But what happened here is we didn't go through the natural reincarnation process. We were just moved directly from that body into this body by artificial means, consciousness transfer. I don't know if that was like 5-year-old.
No, but
Yeah,
that
no,
helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Uh,
absolutely helps. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, so our original body is passed away, and now in this body we have these two people plus some other beings that are functioning together as one. So we're an interbeing. We combine a couple of different human perspectives and a couple of ET perspectives. Yeah.
O Okay, cool, and then so then, essentially, then you were just born into whatever program this is or was.
Yeah. In that body I was abducted as a young child when I was 4 years old. In this body it was from birth. This body is from a satanic bloodline family, so the abuse happened from birth in this body.
So your family, the family lineage, I guess, has been involved. Obviously, it's an ancestral thing,
Mhm.
and, like, this is I guess to just clarify so it's not confusing, your memories from this lifetime, are they real-time memories? Or are they also, like, abduction memories from another branch?
Well, both, because I was also age regressed, so that gets into a lot of different complexity. This body has also been on over a dozen different timelines. So those are simultaneous memories where it's the same dates, but different events, different circumstances. So that's also true.
So we're getting into quantum mechanics, the many worlds theory, like, we have infinite many versions of ourselves living simultaneously.
parallel
Yeah.
realities, parallel timelines.
Parallel
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
parallel realities, timelines.
Yeah. There's the organic version of that, which we all have some glimpse into. And then there's the artificial version of it, which is much more dense and much more reliant on different forms of technology. Yeah.
So what was the big turning point for you in your adulthood when you realize, "Oh my gosh, I'm involved with this. This has happened to me." 'Cause
Mm.
I don't imagine that you always had that knowing, or did you?
Well, a part of me always did, but it wasn't
Right.
very conscious. Yeah. My memories really started coming back around 2009. That was kind of my watershed moment. Um, so in this body, I was in my late 20s. And really, well, first came some of the more traumatic sexual assault experiences. That was some of the first stuff to come up. And I started realizing there was more going on than I had been aware of. You know, my narrative at that point was just that I came from an emotionally and physically abusive, home with a very mentally ill mother, and that part's also true. Like that's the part that I was always aware of. But all this other stuff, I started to become aware of around then. I had very intrusive memories. It was when I started meditating seriously. Well, that was 2007. So that kind of late 2000s period is when I was getting big chunks of memory back, getting flooded with like really intense, painful body sensations. So that's when the ball really started rolling, and I gradually started putting the pieces together. But it took me a while. It took me roughly from that period, like 2007, 2008, up until 2013 ish. So a good 4 years, 5 years, where I was very confused about what had happened to me. I was getting pieces coming back. The way I approached it basically was to go in outward order from more believable in a consensus reality way to less believable. So I started with the sexual stuff. Oh, I came from a family with incest. That was like the first big chunk. And then I started accepting that, moving through my shock about that, and then, moving outwards, out of consensus reality. Oh, I was commercially sexually trafficked. You know, that's still consensus reality, but it's kind of on the edge. It's like people have a hard time just accepting that happens.
Right,
um,
right.
including myself. Like I was having trouble believing myself. So, this is why I was doing it this way. And then from there, I went to my first real trauma therapy in 2013, and then the floodgates really opened, and I was able to speak about more detailed things that were farther outside of consensus reality. Okay, it wasn't just sexual trafficking, these were satanic rituals. Okay, it wasn't just satanic rituals, this was an organized military operation with ET beings and lots of moving parts outside of Earth. So that's kind of how I did it.
Yeah,
It's a good way to
not
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Start with the more believable, so to speak, things, and then you go and then you realize, oh, this stuff isn't not only real, but it happened to me, and that's a lot to process, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges for survivors of these things, like learning to believe ourselves, learning to trust ourselves. Takes time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's still, we just kind of premiered our documentary the other night in Sedona, and it talks about similar themes, and we had to did a Q&A at the end, and somebody asked, like, how do you expect people out there, the masses, to even buy this type of time travel, 20 and back stuff? Like we understand, we've been at this for years, that this is actually very fundamentally true, and time travel is the name of the game, and there's technologies involved, blah blah blah, blah, that we're not supposed to know about. But how does to get the normal person to bite onto that, right, and then
Mm.
take it seriously? I think that's where most people need to find they need to walk that tightrope,
Yeah.
because you don't wanna scare people off with this stuff. If you want them to take it seriously, you almost like, you had to do that even with yourself, is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I can imagine we have to keep this in mind if we're trying to tell other people about it, you know? So to wrap your head around these insane technologies and, what we're capable of, it's a very healthy approach. So then you started realizing that you were involved in these programs and stuff. At
Yeah.
at what point did you say, "Okay, I need to do something about this. Am I still involved?" Like, what did that look like?
Yeah. Well, by the time I had my memories coming back, most of the hard work to get free was already done, thankfully. So some people have to deal with targeting while they're still getting their memories back. For me, that was pretty much separate. Like I was pretty much free by the time the memories were coming back. And the battle for my freedom had happened before I even got any of the memories back. So I was kind of lucky in that way because it's very, very hard to navigate the past stuff when you're still dealing with present targeting. So
Yes.
yeah, but for me,
Yeah.
that's how it happened.
So can you give us an example of, let's just say, an off-world memory, something that kinda struck you?
Sure. I spent a lot of time on Mars. I worked as a weapons engineer for a long time. I was designing targeting scanners on plasma rifles, and that was basically a whole lifetime. I had a whole career there. It was almost a 40-year career. It was a pretty long lifetime there. And that's what I did, and it was extremely boring, um, from my from my present perspective. But when I look across my different timeline experiences, that's one of the more stable ones because I was just doing the same exact thing. It was very tedious work, and it was less traumatic than some of the other ones. So that's an easier one to talk about. There were others where I was more on the front lines of the war on Mars, when that was still going on. And those are much more intense. I'd get blown to pieces and then thrown in a regen tank and thrown back out into the field, and just really miserable experience. And of course, the memories are much more fragmented. So
Right. So
yeah,
what is your opinion as far as life on Mars existing? Like, Pete Carey Cassidy had a whistleblower one time that said the people that get their memories back from Mars are remembering life from a different dimension, meaning that if we went there in a spaceship, we wouldn't see the things and find the things that people are remembering. Do you think this happened on a higher plane, a parallel timeline? Like, do you think we would go there physically and find what you remember?
yes, you would definitely physically find it. It's
O-
3D in
Okay.
this reality. Yes.
Okay. But do you agree with the other aspect of that too, that, there's are
Oh
other
yes, there's always more to the story.
Yeah.
These human lives that we live are just incredibly multidimensional phenomena by their nature. Whether you go through these regression experiences or if you're just having a quote unquote normal life, our life by its nature operates across all of these dimensions. And so there's a lot of content that a lot of us remember and experience across many different modes of perception and dimensions. So yeah, in a general sense.
Right. Now, whenever you say, okay, so did you experience targeting as an adult as you were like remembering this stuff? I know you talked
A
about like,
little bit. It was more subtle. I had basically gotten free by around 2003. So after that, I was never actually in the cult again. I was never in the military programs again. What would happen instead is I would have people come into my life who were, trying to trigger me or trying to block memories. I would, especially love interests, I would have love interests that showed up that would be functioning as handlers, and trying to just slow down my whole process of remembering and speaking out and becoming a teacher and all this stuff. So there were definitely some targeting instances after I got free, but they were more subtle and they relied more on my free will participation. Like once you're free of the immediate manipulation, they need some degree of you saying yes in order to get into your field if you're a sovereign adult person. As a child, it's very different. Like you don't have that power over yourself and you don't have that kind of insight into your mind just because you're not physically mature. But as an adult, free of the programs, there were infringements on my sovereignty, but they were still like basically coming from my free will expression.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little deeper. I agree that it all has to be done with your consent on some level, even though they might have a sick, twisted perspective on how that actually looks. But we are tricked into consent in many situations, and there
Mhm.
is deception involved. So, like, how do you cope with that? Like, understanding that, yeah, I agreed, but I was tricked into it, and that's something that a lot of people struggle with because, it's not fair, right?
Yeah, it's incredibly unfair. It's so unfair. And the higher self does make some agreements that are radically unfair to the human person, just radically. And that was definitely the case for me. I mean, this was not my idea of initiation. I'd rather go through some consensual shamanic experience. Like I didn't want to have all this trauma, but that was my higher self's idea of initiation, so that's what happened.
Right. Yeah, I
Right.
think it's interesting that, we find ourselves in these situations and you wonder why and how. And then you have to go back to the root cause and actually, like, at first, we want to point the fingers at all these agencies and corporations, but then we consented, but then were we tricked into it? Like, it's a very fine line there. And I don't think it's black and white. And maybe we chose it on a higher level. Maybe we just chose the overall experience, but the details or the specifics were going to evolve that came into our lives. So I think there's any number of situations that can happen. Do you have anything to add to that?
I'll
I
say that some body minds are more fought over than others. So this particular body that I'm in comes from a reptilian bloodline family. And so in order to incarnate into this body, I had to run the gauntlet of all these things even before I came into this incarnation. This was a heavily guarded, heavily fought over incarnation. And so there's a lot of competition to get into these kinds of bodies. There are a lot of souls that are knocking at those gates. And a lot of them don't realize the full implications of what they're getting into. When you look at it from the soul level, you think, oh, sure, I can deal with that. And then you get into it. It's like, oh, fuck, this is a living hell. Um, so there's that piece. I just want to say this body that I'm in is, um, as far as some of the Draco are concerned, it's very valuable real estate. Not every human body is so fought over as this one.
Aaron, were you going to say something?
yeah, to dovetail onto this, I know I've heard many people, either near-death experiencers or people that remember their life between lives when they were at the soul level or the higher self level, where they're even choosing their current incarnation, and they're like, "Wow, I actually signed up for all this horrible stuff. Why would I do that?" But they remember being in that perspective where you have such a greater perspective, and to them, this life is like that. It's like so quick, and it's like nothing.
Yes.
And you see the value of your experiences from that perspective, whereas once you get in here, you kinda have this amnesia, and you're just in it, and it's a whole different experience, like you said, and you're
Yeah.
like, why is this happening? Why would I choose this? This is insane." Until you get back there, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, that was so valuable, now I get it again," you know? So it's
Yeah.
just from this small 3D perspective, things are hard to kinda grasp, right?
Yeah. Also, my soul family is very large. This is true for a lot of people who choose these difficult experiences. the Draco beings, the Zeta Reticulan beings, the Orion beings, the ones that are perpetrating these things, those are also my soul family, So we had our own communion and our own agreements, like before I took this incarnation. It's like, okay, like we're all family in an extended sense, even though in this body I would never trust them, but
Right. Right.
Right. Yeah. So, Aaron, really quick, check your microphone and see if it's on the right setting.
Oh,
We can
might not be.
we can still hear you, but I don't know if it's the
Oh yeah, it's not.
Anyway.
It's not even picking it up for some reason.
Yeah. Sorry about the interruption there.
Sorry.
So, okay, you say this goes beyond trauma-based mind control. And
Mhm.
yeah, there's ETs involved, even like your ETs embodying you and other soul fragments and stuff. But what do you mean when you say it goes beyond that?
It means that this is just a small part of a very long journey, kind of what Aaron was getting at. um, these events of our lives are put into motion so long ago. The entire string of all of our human incarnations, like there's not just counsel between lives, there's counsel before all the lives. And I have my soul contracts with Gaia herself to serve her in many, many different forms. And this has been my journey with Gaia across countless millennia and countless bodies, human and non-human bodies. Like I have just a standing commitment, my own conscious relationship with Gaia. She's the one I'm serving first and foremost. And so basically, whatever sort of experience will allow me to serve her best is the one that I choose for myself in the extended sense.
Right. And I like that you brought that up because remembering that we're here to either serve Gaia or work with her, live in harmony with the planet, bring it back online, whatever that is, like that's the most important thing to remember because like you said, it can feel like a living hell if once you go through this stuff and you're down here and like, why? Like we're just bombarded every day. So
Yeah.
to like, I think to have that fundamental understanding of what you're actually doing here. And it might be to blow the whistle, remember being part of these programs and blow the whistle and help expose that, but there's even a higher mission, is what you're
Mhm.
saying.
Yeah. I would like to mention, in addition to serving Gaia, I have a very close relationship with the Ontarians. They're a positive eighth density alien race from the Scorpio constellation. So I've called my business Ontarian Journeys. They're very, very close to my heart. I have a future incarnation in the Antares system. And that magic, that Ontarian magic, has been part of every incarnation that I've had on Earth, not just the recent ones. So there are some threads from deeper time that are flowing through here. And the Ontarians are the ones who helped me survive these experiences, helped me survive Montauk, helped me survive Mars. They were always there with me.
Okay, so this is really interesting. This is a group that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. I've heard them brought up before.
Mhm.
Now, whenever you say they're helping, are they coming in the form of a spirit guide? Are there actual Antarians like in a base here on Earth physically? Or
Yeah.
what do you know about that?
Primarily as spirit guides, sometimes also in physical matter. It takes them a tremendous amount of energy to become physical, so they don't often do it, but they do on occasion. And they have done that to save my life on a few occasions. So that's a big part of why I'm talking to you is because they made themselves 3D for long enough to help me with something, to help get me through something.
Now,
They're oh,
go ahead.
yeah, we don't hear about them that much because not a lot of humans are incarnated from that source. The Ontarians are a true neutral party. They're not part of the Galactic Federation, although they do support all those other groups, the ones that we hear about more, Pleiadians and Syrians and Arcturians. And yeah, much love to all of those groups. Um, the Ontarians are more of an independent civilization. They don't serve good or evil. They're completely beyond those kinds of distinctions. The Federation groups are serving good, and the Orions and the Draco are mostly serving evil. And there's that whole drama, which I do appreciate, and obviously I have been part of. um, but the Ontarians basically don't touch any of that karma drama stuff. They're on a higher level, and every being needs them in order to incarnate on planet Earth. They have a very intimate relationship with the birth cycle. Antares is kind of the birth canal. It's like how souls move into the Earth plane. So everybody needs that, like the good, the evil, the indifferent. They all have to use the birth canal of Antares. And so it's a neutral space. It's a space which all parties, regardless of orientation, understand to be so fundamental to life that it basically can't be tampered with. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's beautiful, and I don't know that I've ever actually heard that before. And it would make sense that certain groups are assigned specific roles in the human experience.
Hmm.
And when you say that on a few occasions they've incarnated or manifested physically, what did they look like? Did they come in the form of a human, or did they have a very specific look, or what?
There are a couple main groups. One group is dog-headed, so they're humanoids with dog heads,
Interesting.
kind of like Anubis, the Egyptian god Anubis, um, which was part of. I was also part of Project Ibis, and Anubis was my avatar. So, they had some insight into who I was at a soul level to use me in that way. So basically, these jackal beings, these Anubis type creatures, jackal is still my heart animal, my spirit animal. And there's a very strong connection there. There's, the energy pattern of the jackal is very reminiscent of the Ontarian heart. So that's one thread. Other times they'll show up as insectoids, commonly mantids, sometimes ants or things in between, kind of an ant mantis hybrid, and very, very benevolent, very intelligent. A little bit similar to the ants on Mars that, other survivors have talked about and that I've seen. Um, but they've had millions, billions more years of evolution, so they're in a very different place. But physically, usually they'll come in either this kind of dog-headed form or this insectoid form, um, or just as orbs, which is just the generic way that we see higher beings a lot of the time,
So what determines which form they choose? I'm very curious about this because that can be confusing. You're talking about this Anubis type of dog being and then
Hmm.
this insectoids, but they're being the same race.
Hmm. Yeah,
And that
it's the same basic frequency. So, well, this gets really meta, but
this
every
it kind of started off that way. So let's
yeah,
just go
yeah.
in. You might,
We get that. We go everywhere on this show. We get
I
yeah.
appreciate that so
figured.
much. Um, well, every star has its harmonics for the forms of life that it can support. Our sun's soul is incredibly diverse. Like he supports all sorts of crazy life forms. We have star-seeded life forms from just about everywhere in many, many universes, showing up in our solar system, showing up on Earth. Most star systems are a little less diverse in the forms that will show up there. So Antares is a binary star system. There's Antares A and B. A is a big red star and B is a small blue star. Um, Part of it depends on how they're relating to the frequency of the star that they come from. So most of my people are from Antares B. And so they'll primarily use the dog-headed forms. Um, and Well, that was a great lead up, but I don't know if I actually understand the specific like reasons for the choice in the moment. I just know that's how they've showed up, and they've
Right.
told me that it has to do with the harmonics of the star. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, I love where you're coming at this from because it's such a deeper perspective, right?
Mm,
And yet, like understanding the frequencies involved and that, like, basically anything's possible. They don't. It's not finite. You know.
yeah. Oh, I guess the last part of that was if they're coming from Antares A from the larger star, they're more likely to show up as mantids. Yeah.
Interesting. So then that begs the question: when somebody encounters a dog being or a mantid, it doesn't specifically mean that they're from A or A or B place, right? It could
Not
be.
necessarily.
Yeah.
Well, like humans, we can be from anywhere. The human civilization is all across the universe. There are many, many people that look like us. Just because they look like us doesn't mean they're from Earth.
Yeah, and I think the Stargate SG-1 series depicts that beautifully, in
Hmm.
fact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
I
night
think
sky show that Amanda and I just watched a few months ago too. This guy comes through basically what's like a jump gate, and he's a human, but he's from some planet many, many light years away, and he speaks English, but like the language they're taught Latin on his planet, And which I think it's like pure disclosure, like so much
Yeah.
like we see in sci-fi is like straight up just pure disclosure.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I could also say on the physical level, I'm hybridized with Alpha Centauri humans. So there are some slight differences that make me a little unusual on Earth, but I'd be very average by Alpha Centaurian standards. So there's that connection also.
So, Antarian and Centaurian. Yeah.
Ontarian and Alpha Centaurian. Yeah.
Right. Well, I just thought I've always heard that Alpha Centaurians referred to as the Centaurians. So,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting. And
But real quick, the human form, like our form in of itself, didn't start on this planet. So we are, you
Yeah.
could say, ETs. You know,
This
it's
is
like
true. That
we
is true.
came here from all over the place, and some people say Lyra was really kind of the birthplace of the modern human.
Right. And one of the things in Stargate that I find interesting too is so they'll go discover a new planet and there'll be humans on that planet that actually they've learned originated on Earth from like the Hebrides islands or something.
Hmm.
And they have like this name, but they don't even know that that's where they're from. And it's to me that's such a random, weird, unique detail to include in the show unless there's some that's actually the truth, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So they're encountering people who have actually originated on Earth some time ago and now have forgotten who they are and they're on this other planet, they have no awareness that their origins are tied to Earth. So there's so many situations like that. That's one example. Like I don't think we can fathom the complexity of what's actually going on.
Probably not. And that's why we're here, to try to fathom it.
Right. So you're talking about, you like to help people heal. You say healing age regressions and distortions.
Mhm.
When you say healing age regressions, what does that mean?
Well, I work with a lot of people who are up there in the secret space program somewhere, having a parallel life experience or having a parallel timeline experience. It's a sadly, very common thing that a lot of people deal with, mostly unconsciously. The vast majority of super soldiers are dealing with this on an unconscious level. But for those who are working through it consciously, and want to ground and have some insight and disconnect from all those kind of false realities, collapse those timelines, that's something I help people with. Yeah.
Right. So
amazing.
but okay, so the age regressions, I guess I'm specifically wondering what you mean by healing from the
Oh,
age
yeah.
regression. Yeah.
Well, there are some distortions of the physical and the emotional and mental bodies that happen when someone's been age regressed. In terms of concrete outward symbols, a lot of us have autoimmune disorders. This is a very, very common thing in the SSP community because the time regression technology tends to create those things. The body has its ways of aligning to the present time continuum. And when you drag people outside of that continuum, all sorts of untoward physical, emotional, mental things happen. So I guess I'm speaking to some of those, particularly emotional distortions. Those are some of the ones that I feel particularly skilled in clearing. Because of the Antarian connection, basically the Antarians, as I was saying, are serving as sort of the mother archetype for this entire system. So I have a lot of that nurturing mother energy, and that comes through. The great mother can pretty much heal anything on any level of experience. So that's the primary medicine that moves through me, and it works for all kinds of things. It doesn't have to be secret space program people, um, but it's especially relevant when you're so dissociated and like all these things just don't work to heal because, the connections to the other timelines are not being understood very well. Yeah.
Right. So ultimately you're helping people recover from DID, dissociative
Yeah. On the more local level of consciousness, yes, DID is a big one. Um, uh, Most of the things I've been talking about so far are well beyond DID, but yes, also, even if someone just just has ritual abuse and one timeline of experience and has DID. That's also something that I help people with sometimes. Um, it's really hard to get help with DID because the professional associations that deal with it are so infiltrated by the satanic perpetrators. I mean, there are some good DID resources out there, but they're so careful to never talk about ritual abuse. It's very, very frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of the time there's a very direct connection between someone having survived trauma-based mind control and someone having DID. I've touched on this in some of my other interviews a little bit, and I'm happy to go more into that if it feels alive. But
Yeah, I just more or less, I think you answered it fairly enough. But I want to also touch on something you just said. People having, I guess, physical ailments that are directly related to the programs or a result of
Mhm,
an age regression,
mhm,
which I think we know what just happened with James Rink,
yeah,
and that's very sad. But I think that's a perfect example of somebody who has gone through that, and the physical ailments. There's a byproduct of his time in the programs.
mhm,
And, we don't consider that enough because we're over here trying to heal ourselves, right? And not understanding the root cause. So we're having no luck. And in many cases, people don't understand why they can't overcome something, but that's because they've literally been disconnected from the root cause of that, which might have happened on another timeline, or it might be a result from an age regression technology, something we don't consider. And it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense.
Or even
yeah,
the super soldier aspect. I would imagine that would take a massive toll maybe as well.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, they juice you up really, really badly
Yeah.
when you're in those programs. I mean, you're on so many like steroids and stimulants and like all kinds of intoxicants, and then like people present with these things in their bodies, and they're like, "Well, I've never used steroids in this lifetime, but
Right.
obviously there's some bleed through from these other experiences." Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's also a great point. Like, you have things in your body, like many abductees will have radiation poisoning, but they've
Hmm.
never been exposed to
And they're
radiation.
like, "This
Yeah.
makes no
Yeah,
sense. Why would I
yeah.
have
Yeah.
So that's
radiation?"
just like
Yeah.
I guess an easier way to understand it, because that's something that's very, I guess it's been tracked. I mean, it's been documented, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Many people have had, including myself. I've woken
Mhm.
up with basically radiation sickness, and
Yes. I've died from radiation burns many times, unfortunately. And I've been put in the regen tank. If they have enough of your brainstem left, they can put you in the regen tank. I've also just been regressed out of some of those death experiences and starting all over again as a toddler. So, yeah, unfortunately, I know how that feels.
so
I used to have recurring dreams of dying of radiation poisoning, like, over and over again, and it took me a very long time to understand, like, "Oh, that's, like, part of my literal life, and I wanna integrate that." Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So you at the beginning you said there's 2 versions of you, one born in 1970 and the other one in '86.
Mhm.
But that would technically mean that your actual first or this incarnation on Earth, that when we're talking to you now, technically happened in 1970, and then it just got sucked right back into '86. So that would make you 15 years, 16 years older than you actually are.
Yeah, that's basically true. Although this is not the original body, this is the second body. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, so I'm saying, like, I think that happens more than we realize because, like, you feel like an old soul in a young body,
Yes.
and I'm only saying this because this is what has been brought up to my attention in a session that I had one time,
Mhm.
that, I incarnated my first incarnation on Earth occurred in Venice, Florida in 1966, and
Mm.
then I was, whatever, taken into this program for 20 years, and at the end of that 20 years, instead of coming back, I went into another body, which was my mother gave birth to, and it's, like, really confusing, but in a way, it made so much sense to me because I've always felt like literally like 20 years older. All my friends are older than I am. They always have been. You just kind of you have this wisdom that people your age don't typically have,
Mm.
and so I think it just having discussions about things like that being possible might help somebody who's listening to this understand, and maybe they won't feel so crazy for being a specific way.
Definitely. Yeah, I do feel mentally more, like, my original age, which would be about 56. Yeah.
Right. And then how does your body feel? Does your body feel like 56? Because that's what I
Uh,
deal with.
well, I'm so grateful for this body. It's been so forgiving of so many horrible things. And my guides have intervened on many levels with this body. So basically, my guides have told me that I would be in terrible shape if it wasn't for their ongoing support. So I do rely on their support. They've worked miracles with this body, and I'm very grateful for that. So most days it does feel like the birth certificate age, which is 38, 39, something like that right now. I mostly feel like that. Of course, part of the journey of maturity is that you're always getting into your full power, and your life force increases as you age. If you're aging with consciousness, your life force increases, and it's possible that the body can hold a lot more life force as you age. So it's kind of the opposite of the usual aging paradigm.
Mhm. Yeah, you have a lot more control over that once you have that awareness.
Mhm.
And like you mentioned when you sent me consciousness blending, so it's also understanding that, like, there's other aspects of you that need to be integrated, and having that understanding can help you stay youthful, I feel.
Yeah, it helps very much. And sometimes it's especially helpful for DID systems because usually when we have that experience, most of those alters are going to be pretty young. Even if they're presenting as adults, like 9 times out of 10, when I go into a certain altar and the person is like, "Oh, I think that person's an adult," almost all the time when we go into it, it's actually a child, um, and it needs to be related to as a child. So it can be very helpful for DID systems to remember the transcendence of age, and it helps us respect ourselves as survivors because those parts are just they're a lot younger than they appear.
Right.
And that's especially true in the space programs when you've been age progressed, because you can be age progressed going the other way, made older, and you're basically operating with a child's degree of emotional maturity in a body that's like a fully mature adult.
Yeah.
So there's
A
that.
Actually, Andrew Bishago, I think, has the best testimony of age progression.
Mm,
He describes it well, he isn't a very he's articulate anyway, and he has an incredible memory, but he's experienced age progression, and he was that in fact, whenever they were, I guess, experimenting on him with that technology, they put him in a room with, like, children's books and stuff like that, but he was an adult because they had to, like, the mind had to catch up, right?
yeah.
And they did that because he had to, I guess, go through, the Montauk Time Tunnel or whatever it was, wherever they were sending him with whatever time travel technology they had, that he had to be an adult for that mission, right?
Mhm.
To fit in or blend in. So he has a really, really interesting testimony surrounding that. And,
Mm.
I don't I hardly hear people talk about age progression.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you
Well,
brought
I
that up.
Yeah.
I also went through that experience on a few occasions, mostly in clone bodies. So I've also had experiences outside of the two people that I've mentioned where my consciousness was moved into clone bodies. And those get age progressed really quickly, because they basically they need to turn an infant into a soldier like very, very fast.
Mhm.
So it's very common with clone bodies to do that. Progression can be even more debilitating than regression sometimes, but with clone bodies, they don't care. Whenever that clone dies, they might regen it or they might just put you back in your organic body. So they don't really care what's happening on more subtle levels. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we did a webinar on cloning and that was talked about, you age
Mhm.
progress somebody to age 20, right?
Hmm.
And in fact, it creates, a specific type of anger and anxiety within that being, which makes them more susceptible to your mind control and
Yes.
they wanna be a soldier because 'cause they're angry, and
Yes.
they'll fight for you.
Yes, exactly. They really the perpetrators really value people in any body that are in an adrenalized state already and have emotions that are easily turned against the person and manipulated. Yeah, that's just they eat that up.
Yeah. So how much of this would you say is you in this lifetime healing ancestral karma or
Hmm.
ancestral just healing an
Yeah.
ancestral lineage.
Definitely some of this is for my biological lineage because they did go down such dark pathways. They've been Satanists for a very long time, my biological ancestors. A long time ago, they were Jewish. They converted to Catholicism in the Middle Ages, but they've had a front religion the whole time. But basically, they've been Luciferian Satanists, like going back for a very long time. So there is a lot of personal family karma to clear, and that is part of the mission here. I do a lot of that on my own. Some of my ancestors are helpful sometimes. Um, my ancestors are on their own healing journeys,
Yeah.
which I judge to be slower than mine.
Right.
uh, but they do continue. We're all going towards the light in one way or another.
Yes, and
Right.
interestingly enough, I don't know if you there it is again.
There's
I've seen
tons of orbs behind
4
you.
orbs,
There
at least 4 orbs
I've seen
flying.
more than that.
Yeah,
There's been a bunch. Yeah.
and they're very prominent too, yeah,
Hey.
so it could be like you mentioned earlier, there's another
There's
one.
another one just
It
now.
they just showed up and these higher dimensional beings, they're everywhere on your screen.
Yeah,
They
that's
show up
true.
as orbs. It could
Mhm.
be, wow,
There was
holy
like 3
cow.
more just now.
It's like
Yeah,
an
they're clearly
interdimensional
with you.
highway just opened up. Can you see them on your screen?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm seeing
Uh,
it.
No, I
I'm
mean,
not
Alandra, yeah.
Oh, you see.
I'm not seeing them physically. I can sense them though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild, like, when you watch this replay, you have to whatever minute mark we're at, we
Yeah,
have to
you should see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
you should check that out.
Cool.
No,
Hey,
because I
fam.
think this what everybody coming forward now with these memories and sharing their stories or whatever, I think it's a sign of the times that this planet is experiencing a massive shift because it seems that everyone in this incarnation is here to end a cycle. And there
Mhm.
goes another orb. They're just flying around
They're
behind you like crazy.
yeah.
But I feel like they're here to end that karmic cycle, right? It's
Mm.
been going on generation after generation, and then we're the group that chose to incarnate to break free.
Mm.
And I think that's self-evident at this point if you listen to all these testimonies. Why now? Why in this era? And not so much before. Maybe certain people were breaking out earlier, but right now that's
Yeah.
the theme.
Yes. Yeah, we on Earth are resolving the karma of many times and places, many nations, many locations. A lot of us who have the secret space program experience are resolving millennia of societal conflict from Orion, from the Orion Wars, from the Lyran Wars. We're metabolizing that through this present lifetime, through our present bodies. Like, this is massive collective stuff that's going on through each of us individually.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is why things are so intense
Hmm.
on this planet right now. It makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. And what is your opinion, zooming out and looking at the world stage right now and where we're at? Like a lot of people believe that we're, entering into this higher timeline. You can call it the golden age or whatever, but then there's the other side of that
Ascension
coin
time.
where people think, or ascension, yeah. Then there's the other side of that coin where people are mistaking the chaos for darkness and doom and gloom.
New World
So
Order, enslavement, we're all screwed no matter what, and
And
Yeah.
and
it's only negative.
it's a valid perspective to have, especially if you're not having discussions like this, which requires an understanding that most people don't have, unfortunately, because we just been born into this program with amnesia. So,
Hmm.
what do you see occurring right now? Do you really think we are on this ascension timeline?
Oh, I think it's all true.
You're like, yes,
It's
all of the above.
yeah, all of the above, please. Yeah, it's a very hopeful time, and it's still a very, very dark time. Like, we're being dragged down into just the depths of depravity by the whole just, you know, NSA Facebook complex of things, which is just like the dragging people into the dumbest possible version of humanity. Like, that's obviously happening. Um, at the same time, people are more and more resistant to manipulation and more in touch with their true spirit bodies. I mean, so many people are just spontaneously waking up now without any, traditional spiritual practice. They're just like, well, okay. Wake up one
Right.
morning and realize, oh, I'm having a parallel experience in the Sirius system. Oh, wow.
Right.
Uh, or they're getting there however they get there, maybe plant medicine or whatever works for people. But I'm seeing a lot more of that, which is very, very encouraging. The more of us that are tuned in and turned on, the more we can resist the death agenda and the Instagram agenda, which is just like, move into our sovereignty and our freedom. So yeah, that's my version of all of the above.
Yeah. And real quick, I want to say, I think, I totally get it's kind of like the truther general mindset of, they're only looking at information and things look really scary from that level. And I get it. And I was more there years ago. And until you have a greater perspective, like everything you're talking about in a more spiritual, grounded state of being and perspective, you're not really going to understand the greater
Higher
perspective of
aspects.
what's going
Yeah.
on, right? And it's going to look really scary. And I get why they can, you're like, oh my God, there's nothing you can do. They have all the power, and and it's like, well, actually, I think it's the exact opposite. I think we have all the power, but you got to tap into that. And that's what the awakening and the ascension is like, we are coming online naturally and organically. And there's going to be a certain point where, and right now we're still in the chaotic phase of the turmoil and chaos of the transition from the old to the new, and the old's trying to hang on for dear life, and then people's karmas are playing out and everyone's getting triggered, and there's all this stuff happening all at the same time, which is why it's so intense. But ultimately we have all the power, and we are creating reality. We are co-creating it.
Yes.
We just have to wake up and do that consciously, instead of being manipulated to create someone else's reality that doesn't serve us, right? So
Right. Well
that's
said.
the hope I have, is that the more and more things, the farther we go, the more the awakening is going to go along, and the more we're going to naturally start creating a reality we actually want to create. And then it's going to be one that serves everyone, and that's a lot more beautiful.
Mm.
Right.
Amen. Women.
Amen. Yeah. And that's like a great reminder too. If we are that much in control of our reality, then why aren't we much more intentional about where we put our focus and what choices we make every day, as far as our diet, meaning everything, food,
Everything.
social media, television, who you hang out with, and I'm talking to myself here too, because we sometimes we all kind of we aren't so intentional with the things that we do, and we find ourselves slipping into an autopilot mode or something, and we're just kind of going through the motions. But and then we'll find ourselves in a situation like, man, how did this happen to me? Well, at some point along the line, you made an unconscious choice to do something that wasn't you serving your highest timeline. So that's why I think being self-aware, like hyper self-aware right now about everything you do, even every thought that you have, can actually help manifest the reality that you want to see. And it's actually very possible. And most people aren't doing that. And that's not their fault, because we're constantly distracted. And
You're
we might,
programmed from day one
yeah,
to not do that.
right.
So it's not the easiest thing to get to there, but once you do, it's like, there's a point I feel like you get to in your growth, in your awakening, where suddenly you're enough in your sovereignty, you can't really be manipulated in the same way,
In
right?
the
And
same
that's where
way.
I
Yeah.
see a lot of people getting to that point more than I've ever. I mean, I feel like, I call my awakening, happened in 2012, but like it was years after that where I feel like I got to that point where I really grew enough spiritually, and to where I'm like, okay, I get it now. Like I get what's going on here, and I think I get why I'm here.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel
This
like
might
more and more people are getting there. Yeah.
Mhm. This might be a good moment to mention that I host meditation groups, and the group vibe is really great. I have a really good time with it. I love the people that show up. We do a lot of good light work, a lot of good healing. And my part of it is basically guided meditation with my whole council. So sometimes it's me talking, and sometimes it's the other higher aspects talking. But yeah, those are gatherings that really nourish me, and I hope nourish other people. Yeah, and I just want to mention those. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's important
Amazing.
too. I mean, so yeah, talk a little bit more about what you do as far as helping people heal. I know we talked about it earlier, but like you do these meditations and all this stuff. Like like you today, this has obviously everything that you've gone through has shaped you into the person we're talking to, and what you have to offer now is directly a result of your experience. And I think that's huge because it's a perfect example, and you're showing people like, listen, like you can play victim to this and perpetuate it, or you can like find a way out and help people. So, I guess give us a little more of a well-rounded pick
Oh,
idea of what you do.
oh, sure. Uh, well, a lot of what I do is based in storytelling. A lot of my Earth incarnations have been as a storyteller. Most cultures have this role in a more direct, obvious way. Of course, this is what we're all three of us doing in a way here. But I've had a lot of lifetimes where I was the village storyteller and I would go around and, spin a yarn for people. Other lifetimes where I was the shaman figure and I had my hut outside the village and people would come from the village to get spirit medicine or whatever. I just bring those things up because those go into what I'm presently doing. It's a storytelling exercise. It's also a shamanic exercise. Um, and we have different levels of perception and assistance going on. The Ontarians are the highest level that I have consistent access to. There are many, many higher levels. I'm not placing any limitation on it. But often the Ontarians are working through me. They are, again, in divine feminine consciousness. So it's goddess awareness in a very direct sense. That's one of the pillars of what I'm offering, which is also alignment with Gaia. Gaia is our local goddess, of our human experience, the most obvious goddess that we owe our entire lives to. So those are the two main kind of entry points into a greater story and entrance into spirit that I use kind of from the eighth dimensional goddess level and then from the ground up from the Gaia goddess level. That's my main inspiration and my main service. And then within that, points in between, lots of stuff comes up. We work with dragons, we work with angels, we work with all sorts of other ET beings. I have a very strong Syrian presence who comes through quite a lot, more sixth density Syrian presence. And we work on those in between levels, 4D, 5D levels also.
Yeah. And you must be doing something right, because I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I've seen at least 100 orbs or more. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. It's just
but
they're
it's
just increasing in frequency now. There's
like
tons.
it's very impressive. Like we don't see this very often.
Not
It's
not that many.
yeah, it's
No.
happened before, occasionally, but I mean, there's something going on around you right now that is very interesting.
Hmm.
Multidimensional for sure, which it could be these groups of these beings that you're talking about, your guides, like they could just be here like supporting and showing themselves
Mhm.
to like, okay, like I feel like this is what the future looks like. We talk about these things for so long, and now we're going to literally start getting more evidence of them. They're going to be more tangible, more perceivable. This way, it's not such a stretch to believe what you're talking about because the actual evidence is literally floating around behind you while you're
Yeah,
talking.
right.
You
The
Yeah.
know?
evidence is literally floating
Yeah.
behind you. That's great.
Yeah.
That definitely helps. Yeah.
Right. But do you agree with that? Like like these um Antarians like showing up in physical form. You said it takes a lot for them to do so.
It does.
But
Well, the
but
orbs are pretty low effort. Anybody can do an orb, It's
I,
just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
here's something in your visual field to make you feel more valid." Like that's one of the easiest manifestations around. So, yeah, sometimes it's the Ontarians, sometimes it's other ones. Yeah.
so you think the
Yeah.
orb is them projecting their consciousness, or what is that? Or is it a
Mhm.
Merkaba traveling light body?
Sometimes it's those things. I'd say the most common is they're just stimulating the fabric of our visual space-time so that it's glowing. Like they're just like making our reality sparkle a little bit is the most common one. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but then obviously there are much more involved visitations where you might have like a full-on Merkaba form or something like that, like you're saying. Yeah.
And I have heard many experiencers or contactees or whatever say that the being first came to them in an orb, and then it transformed from an orb to a being or to a light
Mhm.
being, and then back to an orb and flew out.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've heard that many times. So there you go.
So
Yeah.
you said they're the easiest thing form to manifest. So
Mhm.
the way I perceive it is even like I always wonder, even if a remote viewer is creating an orb whenever they project their consciousness to a location, if
Mhm.
somebody in that room could literally identify an orb that is your consciousness remote viewing. Do you think that's how it works?
Sometimes it works like that. Yeah. I mean, the astral body is way more fluid than the physical body. It can take many forms. It could be a point of light, or it could be a fly buzzing around the room. There's really no limitation on that. But yeah, I think a point of light is just one of the most practical, universal applications of consciousness that exists.
Right. Yeah. No, it's absolutely fascinating. I'm still kind of getting distracted by these orbs, but
Yeah.
well, it's so cool. I don't know. It's just something that you don't see every day. I know it happens all the time, but to like capture it on camera like this, it's just really cool. So I hope
Mm.
everyone watching, if you're listening to the audio version of this, come tune in because it's really something to see. Honestly,
Hmm.
yeah. So as far as okay,
Yeah.
this is you brought up the astral body and stuff, and something that I noticed, especially that has been prominent in my journey, is dream warfare, right?
Yeah.
And what can happen in the dream state or these dream societies is a new one I've heard. So it's like these secret societies that are in the astral realm or the dream world. Have you encountered a lot of that? And like I think that's a whole other layer to this that needs to be taken much more seriously.
Definitely. Yeah. Dream warfare is, well, very often, especially with SSP survivors, they're not strictly dreams.
Right.
They're also just direct perceptions of physical events. So there's that aspect. Um, and then just in a more poetic sense, it's always good to pay attention to dreams. Like they're always full of wisdom and light and power, or where you're denying yourself power. They're always a window into the subconscious. Dreams are the most common example that I bring up. If somebody asks, like, what's fourth density? What's the next density? Dreams are the first thing that I always talk about, because it's just easy for everyone. We've all had some sort of dream. And it gives us, even if we have no experience with meditation or whatever, it gives us an introduction to the astral realms, which is very concrete, and a bit of understanding about how those realms work. How fluid things are in dreams. So I see those as a really useful portal and introduction to a lot of different realms. Um, but then, yeah, specifically warfare, there's a lot of warfare over our dreams. There are false dreams that are given to us with malicious technology. A friend of mine calls them Wi-Fi dreams. Like,
That's a
like
great
she'll
way to put
always
them.
she'll always sleep with the Wi-Fi off, because if she has it on, she'll like have dreams about negative zetas. Like, oh, okay. um, I mean, not everybody is that sensitive to that stuff, obviously, but our dreams are fought over just as surely as these 3D lives are fought over.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really
Makes
I
sense.
think it makes perfect sense, but also I think what people need to understand is it's not just always spiritual. Like there are actual corporations, agencies that have technology that or even psionic abilities that people can literally project themselves into your dreams, and it doesn't mean that you're always going to encounter some demonic entity or some reptilian. Like
Yeah.
you could be like you're dealing with some dude in a warehouse or in a basement somewhere, and like literally wreaking havoc in your dreams, and therefore that translates into your daily life. Therefore that weakens you, and then like you become more susceptible. So
That's true.
understanding that there's technology involved too, and sometimes people call entity assisted technology. There's entities working in tandem with this stuff. It's
Mhm.
very complicated. I'm not saying this to scare anybody, but I've experienced this firsthand to the point where I've had to research it to understand what they're capable of and what this game really looks like. And it's just something to be aware of, is all I'm trying to say. You don't have to be in
Yeah.
fear of it, but if you are having these experiences in the dream time and they're negative, it could be as something as simple, like you said, like cutting off whatever is letting them into your home, allowing them to do that in the first place.
Hmm. Another thing I might want to bring up, in case other survivors are listening, there are a lot of screen dreams also, and things that come just from repetition and programming in childhood and adolescence. like personally, I've been subjected to hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of just virtual reality crap and getting tortured in virtual reality. And also having characters from media come in to cover up actual abuses. Like to this day, I will still have dreams that are totally saturated with Star Trek characters. And now I know to pay attention and look beyond that because that was a programming thing that was used on me when I was a kid, in like the late 80s and 90s when the Next Generation was on TV. Like they would literally like give me acid and sit me down like Clockwork Orange style with my eyelids open, like in front of marathon screenings of the Next Generation. And they would replace things like my actual experiences, they would try to replace them with these downloads from the show, and the show is pretty good. It's nothing against the show.
No, it's a
Um,
great. Yeah.
yeah. But like this is something I became very aware of when I started to get my memories back. Like I would wake up in a cold sweat, but I couldn't describe anything concrete. I just had a dream about Star Trek characters.
Right.
But if I meditated with it and let those false images start to dissolve, I could get to the actual picture of what was happening and why my body was reacting so violently. So yeah, I just want to
Yeah.
mention screen dreams and screen memories here. Yeah.
Yeah, taking a
Yeah.
deeper look through that stuff is also important. I mean, there's a whole other conversation, but I've experienced that too.
Well, many abductees and things have screen memories, and it seems like a lot of times they come from the Earth military, the deep state military, whatever, that
Yeah.
puts that in place over their actual other ET abduction or contact because they don't want them. And then they're like, "Well, I always have this recurring dream of like an owl or of like a something else, whatever the
Uh-huh.
screen is." And
Yeah.
and it's not until they either a lot of times it's from having a hypnotic regression session where they realize, "Oh my God, this is what actually happened to me."
Yeah.
Long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a lot of ones like that. When I was a child, I had a recurring dream that there were these giant Muppet characters in my living room, like super
Mm.
recurring dream. It took so long to like get through that and like what is that hiding, just like oh, because
Mhm.
the emotions were not like oh Muppets, the emotions were like horrible trauma
Right.
emotions. So yeah,
Right. So
Or
it
it
doesn't make sense until you get the real memories.
yeah,
right, or it's also normalizing something for your waking world, in your waking world, as
Mm.
far as Muppets or
hmm
Star
Right.
Trek or whatever that it could be used for programming
hmm
in a strange way, so they
Mhm.
normalize it if you're dreaming about it and you see it like, I don't know, it's just kind of I guess normalizing would be the best way. So they can
yeah,
use that as a tool, for manipulation or whatever it is they're trying to do.
But there's lots of
Mhm.
good stuff that happens through dreams as well.
Yeah,
oh yeah, so
Lots of
much,
benevolent ET contact
yeah,
happens starting through dreams or happens through dreams.
absolutely.
absolutely,
And your guides or, angels or whatever. So
yeah.
there's definitely a lot of both, I think, going on.
Yeah, and the benevolence far outweighs the malevolence for
Right.
sure.
Correct.
Absolutely.
I mean, lots of
Mhm.
premonitions and many things, I've had beautiful experiences, and in fact, I think that you should like, yeah, I don't yeah, I guess this is a great point to make because I don't wanna discourage people not to trust their dreams because I think
Right.
dreams is where are the real that's the real stuff, That's
Yeah,
where you get the real information, so absolutely trust it, but just know that, there's
Just be
things
aware
just be
that
aware.
just
We got a whole audience of ETs, it's such a distracting thing trying to literally interview me right now with an entire audience of
all these
beings
words.
yes,
behind it, like, I can't believe it, I'm still, like, a bit at awe and
yeah.
of the
Oh, I should say my team and I are very available to work with
obviously.
people in to work to work with
Yeah.
people in dreams, specifically, or just anytime. But I am known to materialize in people's dreams to do different light work things. I'm usually not conscious personally of what they are, but it's almost always something really good. So I just
Mhm.
want to say I'm very available for that.
How much
It's
yeah,
amazing.
that's great. How much of this how many people have you come across where they're, like, really struggling, but you realize that a curse has been put on them? Is that something that comes up?
Yeah, that happens. Um, uh, yeah, most of the time with my clients, it goes back to some sort of trauma-based mind control thing. Most of the time, not always. There are curses that are just placed by individuals, that are just out there. More organic curse work is definitely a thing. But in my case, with my clients, typically, when they start out talking about a curse, usually it leads directly into some trauma-based mind control recovery. So,
That's interpreted as a curse when
yeah.
you don't know that. Yeah, makes sense.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, it is something that comes up a lot, and I do think that even like black magic, that's what that is, right? And
Mhm.
like I think that
yeah,
people can even unconsciously curse somebody without even understanding what they're dealing with, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but for a curse to really stick, it's got to have a little bit more discipline and intention in it. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, I
yeah.
agree. I just was curious. It's something that came up with somebody in my life, and I just thought I'd ask you if it shows
Oh,
up
sure.
in your sessions. Yeah.
Well, we're always happy to remove curses. This is yeah, that's part of our bread and butter activity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I might have this person reach out to you directly after this because they're
Mhm.
looking right now. So,
Cool.
looking for some help. So this has been this is a deep conversation. I mean, it's quantum. We went
Yeah.
out there. I mean, we just dove straight in, and I guess
Yeah.
this isn't for the beginner, but that's perfectly okay. So,
Mhm.
if you made it this far into the episode and you're listening to this, we appreciate you sticking around
You're
because
amazing.
yeah, you're amazing. This is some really deep stuff that we're covering, and it's hard to understand the things that we're bringing up, and like in a linear way for one, because right off the bat, when you're talking about parallel lives and born in 70 and 86 and two aspects of you embodying the same avatar and all this stuff, people are like, whoa, 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 what?
Age regression, age
Age regression, age progression, yeah.
and
All
that's
these
just cool stuff.
programs and abductions
Yeah.
and all these things, dream warfare and curses. It sounds very over the top, overwhelming, and confusing, but it's the reality of the situation. And then until you start
Mhm.
understanding the complexity of it, then that's the only time. That's when you can rise above it,
Mm.
because you have to know what you're up against. We came here for this spiritual war to participate in this, and the only way to really take down your enemy is to know your enemy, right? Not that
Yeah.
we're trying to take them down because they're going to do that to themselves, but to rise above it, you have to know what
Mhm.
they're capable of. And then and your orbs in the background are literally proof that like your guides are with us all the time.
Hmm.
And like your star family and everything, they're around, and there's equally, if not more, positive things that you can tap into. It's just that the dark seems more apparent because it's being exposed right now, and they're doubling down because they're losing their grip, and we know all that.
Mhm.
So, are there any final words you'd like to leave us with before we wrap up today?
We are all so loved. Love is the most infinite force in all creation. Everything is grounded in love. We are here because of love. All of the evil that we experience is just a fractal of love. Everything goes back to that.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely spot on
Yeah,
and beautiful.
simple.
Yes.
It's just that simple. And let our audience
Mhm.
know how they can find you, your website, and all that
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. Well, Ontarian Journeys, Antarean journeys.com is my spirit work site. I have a YouTube channel. Some of my meditations are on there, and that's just my name, youtube.com/Alandra Markman, all one word, like it's on the screen. Those are the main places. I have some other projects cooking. I have a lot of side projects, but I don't know if they're so relevant to the consciousness conversation. I write poetry on a portable typewriter. I have a website for that, Poetry Upon Request. I've got a video game channel. I've got different things.
Nice.
Yeah, but mainly on TarianJourneys.com and my YouTube channel. Yeah.
Great, and you'll have to send me over those links, and we'll put
Mhm.
everything below.
Mhm.
And yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been
Oh,
great,
oh,
and
thank you for having
yeah,
me.
I hope the
Yeah,
audience enjoyed
You
this. I hope everyone here. Thank you for being here. We can't do this without you. And if you'd like to join us in Hawaii, there's still tickets available. We'd love to have you there. JourneyToTruth.online. And until next time, have a great evening. Good night. We love you. Hey guys, Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots on the ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with Soul Family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers.
Aloha!
Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.